In a courtroom filled with whispers, tension, and flashing cameras, one man sat quietly, still as stone. His name was Thomas Hill, a respected high school teacher. Now accused of a crime he swore he didn't commit. The charge? Fraud. He was accused of altering scholarship records and funneling thousands of pounds, or dollars depending on which side of the Atlantic you're on, into a fake student account. The evidence was, well, overwhelming. Every login, every transfer, every digital trace pointed directly at him. But what no one in that courtroom knew, not the judge, not the jury, not even his own lawyer, was that Thomas Hill was telling the truth. And the truth just needed time. It all started 2 months before that trial. Thomas was the kind of teacher everyone loved. Calm, gentle, always patient with his students. He worked late, volunteered on weekends, even helped underprivileged kids apply for scholarships. But one morning, everything changed. He walked into school, coffee in hand, only to be met by the principal and 2 police officers. Within minutes, he was in handcuffs. They said he'd hacked into the school's scholarship database, that he'd forged student names, transferred funds, and pocketed the money himself. He was shocked. He didn't even know how to respond. Thomas, in a soft voice, replayed his memory.
There must be some mistake. I'd never do something like that.
But the computer logs told a different story. The digital signature, the IP address, all of it traced back to his computer. It looked hopeless. By the time the trial began, the media had already painted him guilty. Greedy teacher, scams school. That was the headline splashed across the morning papers. The courtroom was packed. Reporters filled every seat. And there, at the center of it all, sat Thomas Hill, hands folded, eyes steady, quiet as a man who's already accepted his fate. Judge sternly said,
Mr. Hill, you stand accused of deliberate embezzlement of educational funds. How do you plead?
Thomas firmly and calmly responded.
Not guilty, Your Honor.
His lawyer, Sarah Miller, whispered beside him. She was sharp, determined, but even she was beginning to doubt her client. Sarah whispered,
Thomas, if there's something you're not telling me, now's the time.
He looked at her, calm as ever. Thomas then said,
The truth doesn't need to shout, Sarah. It just needs time to be heard.
The prosecution presented everything. Emails, bank statements, timestamps. It all seemed airtight. The jury looked uneasy, but convinced. Thomas just sat there, quiet, patient, like a man waiting for a storm to pass. The prosecutor smirked, and then said, Every log, every byte of data leads to his computer. So unless this man believes in digital ghosts, he did it. Even Sarah began to feel the weight of defeat. But Thomas didn't flinch. He looked straight ahead, his eyes fixed on something beyond the judge, something no one else could see, the truth. But then something small, almost unnoticeable, changed everything. As the prosecution rested, a man sitting in the back of the courtroom stood up and quietly left. No one noticed, except Sarah. She recognized him, the new IT technician who had replaced the previous one at the school. Something about the timing, the way he left the moment Thomas's name came up again. It sparked a thought. That night, Sarah didn't sleep. She went back through the digital logs, comparing timestamps and login routes. And that's when she found it. The logins supposedly from Thomas's home computer had actually originated from inside the school's server room. Someone had cloned his credentials and rerouted the access. At dawn, she got security footage. And there he was, the new IT technician, plugging a USB drive into the school's main server at the exact time of the fraud. The next morning, the courtroom was packed again. Everyone expected the verdict, guilty. But before the judge could speak, Sarah stood up and said,
Your Honor, before you rule, the defense requests to submit one final piece of evidence.
The judge hesitated, but allowed it. She pressed play. The footage rolled. On screen, time-stamped, the technician entered the server room, logged in under Thomas Hill's credentials, and began the data transfer. A gasp swept the courtroom. The technician, sitting quietly in the back, tried to slip out, but two officers were already blocking the exit. The prosecutor, stammering. That footage, where did you... Sarah firmly responded.
From the school's own security system, legally obtained, unedited.
The judge leaned forward, removing his glasses, and admitted,
Mr. Hill, it appears you've been telling the truth all along.
Thomas exhaled deeply, the first real breath of freedom in months. He didn't smile, he didn't cheer, he just closed his eyes as if saying a quiet prayer of gratitude. Moments later, the real culprit was in handcuffs. Reporters shouted questions. Cameras flashed again, but this time not at a criminal, at a man who refused to let lies destroy him. As Thomas stepped outside, Sarah caught up with him, saying in a soft voice,
You never got angry. You never begged. How did you stay so calm?
Thomas smiled faintly and said,
Because panic belongs to lies. Patience belongs to truth. When you know you're right, you don't rush the world to believe you. You just wait and let the truth find its way.
He walks away slowly, blending into the sunlight outside the courthouse doors. Sometimes life will corner you. People will accuse you. The world will seem deaf to your innocence. But if you hold on to patience and stay true, the truth, no matter how buried, will rise. Because as Thomas Hill proved that day, truth doesn't need to hurry. It just needs to last. You've been listening to Veil of Mystery, where the line between truth and terror begins to blur. Subscribe for more real and fictional tales that will keep you awake at night.